March 10, 2020. Hi, my name's Tom Yakopin, and this is the Tom Yakopin podcast. We call it Yakopinions. Why? Because it's basically my opinion. You can take it or leave it, but it is my goal not to tell you what to think, but to talk with you about things that I'm thinking about, questions that I'm asking. Rather than bringing you to a conclusion, my hope is to share some things with you, perhaps to get you thinking, so that as a society, maybe we're asking better questions and as a result, getting better answers. By the way, this is Bob the cat. He's a rescue friend of mine. Actually, I think Bob adopted me, so if he jumps up on the table, that's just how it is. He runs the place, yep, and he did. So welcome, Bob. Anyway, so Mark Twain, interesting thing. Mark Twain is quoted as saying that it is easier to fool a people than to convince a people that they've been fooled. And I found that an interesting statement, and I want to challenge you to think with me today about this business of healthcare in America and the increasing cost, the ever-increasing cost of healthcare in America, and why. And I want to begin with asking you this question, and that is, what if I told you that it was actually potentially more expensive to seek care in many cases with insurance, not only your monthly premium, but perhaps you're being billed more for a procedure than if somebody went to that same hospital or clinic without insurance? What if I told you that? Could you possibly believe that? Okay. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you today about, or with you today about, is the problem in healthcare. You see, whether you identify as a liberal, progressive Democrat, or you identify as a Republican, by the way, I consider myself a libertarian. I'm registered with one of the big parties, but I consider myself neither Democrat nor Republican. So I don't want to make this about a political deal, but I want to make good choices as an American for me and my society, and I think most of you are the same. But with healthcare, whether you're on the left or the right, I think all of us can agree there is something amok with healthcare in America. As a friend of mine would say, there's a skunk in the woodpile somewhere, right? You can smell it. And by the way, I heard a great interview the other day with Bernie Sanders, Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan podcast. He interviewed Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders sees the same problem that I do, and the same problem that you do. And, hi, Bob, and the same problem that maybe the ultra right-wing conservative sees. Like, we're looking at healthcare costs and delivery and healthcare insurance and what is insurance and who should pay for it and how much should it. We're all looking at the problem and saying, Houston, we have a problem, right? We agree there's a problem. The difference between the left and the right, or the Bernie Sanders and the Donald Trump, isn't that they don't see the problem. They see the problem. The difference is one believes in this apparatus to fix it, and one believes in another, right? So you have on the far left, for example, Medicare for all, okay? You have on the far right, repeal and replace Obamacare. Actually, the far right is repeal Obamacare and replace it with nothing. Let the free market take over, which that's more what I believe it or not, than anything. But people see that there's a problem with healthcare. What I want to submit to you is there isn't just a left or right answer. I think that those are solutions potentially, but one actually is just giving government a bigger place in your life and mine, under the guise, of course, that government is super efficient. Well, I challenge that philosophy. The other thing is the left, of course, attacks the over-bloated administrative cost in healthcare of the current model, which I agree with, but they say by shifting everything to the government, they eliminate that. That is not true. Government costs money. Somebody has to pay, right? Government isn't free. They have employees. And by the way, typically their employees are paid well, and they include benefits, pensions. So the idea that all of that administrative, it does not go away. It just has shifted from one entity or one group to another. What I want to submit to you is this. What if, as I said, an individual, and by the way, part of what is on the table this election year is this business of price transparency in healthcare. What if I told you that we could radically revolutionize healthcare, the cost of the care, the delivery of the care, and thus, as a result, if we opened up freedom and liberty in insurance marketing, insurance companies would be able to create any kind of hospital plan across state lines. You, the consumer, could decide if you like it or not and if you want it or not. Why not liberty? Why does the state have to make the decision whether left or right? So I'm going to throw that out there to you. And my model is more this, a free market medical model. By the way, I'd like to put a plug in for a group that I highly believe in, and that is the Free Market Medical Association. You can find them online at www.fmma.org. I'm not selling memberships. I'm asking you to check them out so that you can see a different perspective that includes the perspective of many doctors, providers, surgeons, anesthesiologists, that there's another answer. And that other answer is get rid of middlemen as much as possible and everywhere possible and replace them with neither government nor insurance, okay? For example, going back to what we were discussing as I opened today's talk, it makes no sense and it's very difficult to swallow that you can walk into a Heritage Valley Health System partner or a clinic such as over in Ross Township. You can walk in and say, I have no insurance, I'm paying cash, and a chest x-ray or an abdominal x-ray or foot or hand or spine or knee, any x-ray at all on their price transparency list costs you $42. No insurance. That might be less than you have with your copay, with your insurance that perhaps costs $1,000 a month. What if I told you that lab services with no insurance, no third party, no middleman, cut it all out and just waltz in like we used to do 20, 30, 40 years ago, pay cash for the small stuff, direct transaction. What if I told you you could walk into a lab, a Heritage Valley lab or an Ohio Valley lab, a comprehensive metabolic panel costs $22. Okay, CPT code 80053, or a lipid panel, right? I think I get one of those every year with my doc to check, sugar levels and cholesterol thing. Lipid panel, $22 cash. My point being this: there is an answer to our current healthcare debacle, the big problem. It's a mess. Okay, but I don't think we need more government, and I don't think that we need to repeal and then replace Obamacare with anything. What I submit to you is there's a model called direct primary care or direct cash pay, which means that the consumer having price transparency, which is sorely lacking in our current model, right? Only in healthcare are you obtaining an expensive product or service without first knowing what it's going to cost. You would never buy a car that way. You would never buy a pair of shoes that way. You certainly wouldn't buy a can of tuna fish, $1 can of tuna fish. You price shop that. Do I want chicken of the sea or do I want the generic brand, right? I do, because that's what Bob eats. He eats tuna once a day, plus, the other cat food. But I do spoil him because he was very skinny and when I found him. And so but you get the point. You see, if you went to a restaurant and you had 10 people that you're taking out to a very nice restaurant, everybody opened the menu and you saw that on the menu, all of these choices and options were available, but there was one thing lacking on all of them, the price. You might say to the waiter, hey, why is this missing? And what if the waiter said, hey, listen, don't worry, just order what you want and we'll send you a bill in a couple of weeks. And, would you feel comfortable with that? That's your current healthcare system. Why? I'm going to tell you why, because the insurance companies have convinced you, number one, that you need them, and then add to that government in bed with these companies has actually enforced, if you will, you buying these qualified, compliant plans. And you are at their mercy, right? And in some cases, they now own the hospitals, own the doctors, are controlling the system. It's like a company store, you have to go through, you have to pay them to get in. to live on the plantation, then you have to buy the products or service at their participating network, and all the prices are jacked way up high. And you don't know the prices, right? And you have an insurance plan, and with that insurance policy, they may bill significantly more for a particular procedure and then give you a phony baloney discount in the network to make you feel like you're getting a deal. They may be paying less for a procedure than you are with a copayment, but you don't know it. And this is why, by the way, this upcoming business of price transparency, which, by the way, begins with government mandate in 2021. By the way, I'm not a fan of government mandate. I think there's a better way of doing this, but it is forcing the hand of insurance companies and hospitals to come clean with their rigged pricing. And this, by the way, is why many of these organizations are pushing back against government, or this idea of actually letting we the people know what are the costs of these procedures. You see, here's the thing in closing. When you go to a grocery store and you're looking for a gallon of milk, the thing is, the gallon of milk is publicly priced. Everybody's paying the same price for that gallon of milk. If you go for a dozen eggs, it's the same, right? Wouldn't you feel a little bit manipulated? Wouldn't you feel a little cajoled if you found out that actually there was a different price for everybody that walked in there, that there was some scanner that was linked to a computer brain that gave everybody a code or a number that says, well, you know, Neil over here, he's going to pay $2.99 for that dozen eggs, but Molly over here, she gets them for 99 cents based upon zip code or some economic factor. I mean, it would be weird. That's what's happening in healthcare. What I'm telling you is we need price transparency. We need the business of healthcare and health insurance to come clean and let we the people see and know what is being charged and what the price of things cost. Thanks for your time. My name's Tom Yakopin. This is Yakopinions. Bye for now.